live joining us just off the set of MSNBC. It's our friend Michael Steele, former RNC chair, MSNBC political analyst, former lieutenant governor of Maryland. But now, folks, he is the co-host of his own show on MSNBC starting this weekend called The Weekend, along with Alicia Menendez and Simone Sanders Townsend, Saturday and Sunday mornings, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. Michael, it's great to have you back. It's been too long.
Hey, Dean, I appreciate it, man. It's a real pleasure to be in your neighborhood, and thanks for having me on, man, to talk about everything and anything, especially my new show.
That's right. And so apparently co-hosting a show with Rick Unger is the pathway to having your own show up on MSNBC.
Yeah.
So I have Rick on every other Monday. I'm going to say, Rick, you got to co-host with me. Then that's my path. So let's talk third anniversary of January 6th. We just commemorated it. And Donald Trump spent it in Iowa calling the January 6th attackers hostages over and over. It's not less Stefanik. Trump's been doing it. He did it talking about how unfairly they've been treated. What is your reaction to this? Can help us, because you're still a Republican. I asked Michael in the break because a listener asked. So, Michael, what do you make of this? What is the rewrite for?
Well, the rewrite for is to justify his own illiberal behavior. Is to justify his insurrection, kind of approach to governance, if you will. You know, it's to justify him. So, you know, the people he sent to commit insurrection, of course, he sees them as hostages now that they are being held accountable for their actions, as will he at some point in this process. So it's part of the victim narrative, you know, because hostages are victims, right? They're ultimately heroes. They're not criminals. They're not the ones who are the cause of their being taken hostage. And so that's what he wants us to believe. He's pathological. He's petty, immature. And that's how he's going to see the world in terms of protecting that thing about him that makes him, you know, such the victim to everyone else. So I just largely see Trump for what he is. I wish more people did inside the GOP. They say one thing on January 6th, and they now say something very different. We see that with Elise Stefanik, who's now parroting the hostage thing. So Elise, did you think they were hostages before Donald Trump said the word? Why, if so, why didn't you call them that? Why didn't you stand on the floor of the House and declare their hostage nature and demand that they be set free? Oh, no, you didn't, because you didn't think of that until Donald Trump said it, which that's pretty much where the party is.
Yes, I played earlier that Kristen Welker did a real gotcha because she played a clip of Elise Stefanik saying her own words. And she's like, oh, how dare you beat your media bias at NBC? How dare you play a clip of me to make me look bad by showing my own words? But Michael, before it's about Stefanik, anytime do you take a step back and look at where we are as a country and have to be like, how surreal this is and how shocking it is that the leader of one of the two major parties is a man who attempted a coup, engaged in an insurrection, and is saying, I'll pardon the terrorists who attacked our Capitol, and that these people are hostages. And the GOP base is like, that's the guy we like.
Well, look, there's a lot in that to unpack. And a lot of it has to go to the idea that Republicans have been on this journey in the modern era since Reagan left office. But in its 20th century journey, going back to the 1930s. So there's always been this sort of beneath the surface dance with the devil and this sort of tension over who we are, what we believe, because we've always opened ourselves up to, I mean, you talk about big tent idea. We've always opened ourselves up to these things, to these influences, because at the core, it's about political success, political outcomes. So we raced to the bottom in embracing white nationalism in the 1950s and 60s, which was eventually refuted by party leadership. That was the dance with the John Birch Society, and certainly what Nixon purported in his Southern strategy, by embracing this white nationalism in a way that helps us win national elections. You won the White House in up until really the Reagan era by going through the South, because that's where the power center was oriented. So we embraced the moral majority at the beginning of the 1980s. We embrace the Southern strategy. And now we find ourselves, in order to hold on to that power and to reimagine that power in face of a much more pluralistic society. Yeah, one that, yeah, you may have some issues on some cultural concerns. You may have some issues politically, but in large measure, you're seeing the country move forward, becoming more diverse, becoming a voice of many people, not just one community. And there's a reaction to that, and it's a negative one. And we need to understand what the orientation is. When they talk about make America great again, it's about making a white America, quite honestly, Dean, that never existed. And that's at the core of what all of this is about for a lot of these folks, afraid of people like yourself and myself, who bring something, that little thing called diversity of opinion, thought, not just race and ethnicity, but a diverse view of what America is. And that's exactly what the founders wanted, despite how they started the journey. It's now up to us to continue that journey in a way that reflects everything that we, the people, stand for.
I'm chatting with Michael Steele, former RNC chair and now co-host of the new show on MSNBC, premiering this Saturday, 8 a.m., The Weekend, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. The Weekend. And not the singer. The Weekend will not be on it. And then maybe you can get him on, come on and sing some of his songs. I Can't Feel My Face. Didn't he sing that song? Yeah. So, so let's talk about something that's come up with callers right before you came on, and the idea of, where does the GOP go? Does it go the way of the Whig Party, the Know Nothing Party? Does it disappear and a new name and conservatives go to it? Does it get reimagined somehow? And like the Democratic Party had realignment. We were the party of segregationists. I wasn't part of it then, of course, but that we were. And then things switched 64, little by little, realignment, kept the same name, different composition. What's your prediction on what happens to the GOP?
I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's a little bit of the last things you talked about, where there is this sort of reimagination, this move towards a new conversation, different conversation, as you deal with what I like to call the political enema that has to be applied to clean out the mess. And that's going to be a challenge. And quite honestly, it's the same challenge that I alluded to before, that the party dealt with post-Reagan. The struggle was, we're conservatives. And they're like, yeah, but what about all these New Englanders who aren't? What about all these Westerners who aren't? What about even folks in the middle of the country, Midwesterners who are sort of center-right? They're not necessarily, hard-charging, Southern conservatism. So the party has never really reconciled itself to what it is. And one of the things I tried as national chairman to get it to appreciate is, we're all those things. That's what makes us who we are. We are all those things. You can have a Southern conservative sitting next to a Midwestern centrist hanging out with a Western liberal or a Northeastern, a centrist. That works. It all works. The only thing that matters is that we all gather under the same banner, because this thread of things that we believe, individual liberties and rights, a limited role of government, not a ban on government, but a limited role. It's a limited purpose entity. It has a place. It provides the safety net, and we do everything as citizens to make sure that safety net is there, because there, but for the grace of God, I may need it, right? So the reality of it is, those were the strains that sort of animated the party at its origins. Remember, we were a party born out of the idea to push back on the notion that we could enslave people, and that somehow was un-American. And now you got these idiots out here talking about, oh yeah, we need another civil war. For what? What you gonna do? And what do you think happens when that occurs? And so this idea that somehow we're going to be a better country after something like that, or that we will be a place that people will still want to come to because we're putting people who aren't from here in concentration camps to turn around and send them back. these are the tensions that need to get fought out, and it will be a struggle within the party as it reimagines itself. It still may be called GOP, but it certainly won't be this thing called Trumpism. And my hope is that enough of us gather, which is why I stay in the fight. It pisses them off, I know. That's
Right.
their problem, not mine. But it's there to sort of say, hey, let me hold this mirror up and show you what my mama used to say about people who showed their behind, right? It's not a pretty sight. And so you either need to stop it or you need to get going. And we're here to help you get going. And I think that challenge hasn't happened yet. It's coming. I've been in enough
Right.
rooms to know it's coming, but it hasn't happened yet. So we still have to live with stupid for a while.
And, we talk a great deal, and I've had an expert on, Dr. Bandy Lee, who deal with not cults, but organized crime and gangs. And if you get rid of the leader, it has a way of fracturing the movement. The point is, we defeat Donald Trump. Let me do the flip side. What if Trump wins 2024? What does it do to the GOP? What does it do to our nation?
It is a moment that I think will propel us down a road that will be deeper, darker, and more difficult than Abraham Lincoln faced. Abraham Lincoln didn't have Twitter or social media writ large. He didn't have leaders who purport to stand with the Constitution, agree with the guy who wants to tear it up. And so it's a very difficult and different space that I think the country needs to recognize. But here's the rub. At the end of the day, and I know I'm talking to a largely progressive audience, but to the soundbite that you use coming in, we are all patriots because we fly the red, white, and blue. We all are all patriots, whether we were born here or we immigrated here. We are all patriots because we believe in the ideals of this great country, that no matter where you're from or how you began, you create that journey for yourself. So that's what you've got to fight for. Do you want someone who says to you, I'm going to be a dictator for a day? All right, check that. When in history has anybody said, I'm just going to be a dictator for a day, then I'm going to give you the power back? I don't recall Mussolini having that conversation with the people of Italy, and I damn sure don't recall Hitler saying that to the Germans. Oh, gee, just let me do this for 24 hours, and then we're good to go. No, that's not how it works. So when a leader tells you he wants to be a dictator, I don't care if it's for 10 minutes or 24 hours, you know you got a problem. So you need to check that. When a leader says to you, hey, I want to be not your retribution, not retribution for Dean Obeidallah and Michael Steele. We're going to be on the other end of that retribution. He wants to be retribution for other people, other citizens, other patriots. That's a problem, because now you're talking about someone who wants to divide the country, who wants to bring out the worst in us. So you get to check that. And you know where you check it? A little thing called the ballot box. So
we
I
have
don't
to.
know
We have
why
no
Joe
choice.
Biden. I don't know why Joe Biden is behind right now. Y'all need to explain that to me. Y'all just need to explain it, because if you think an 82-year-old man is a problem, who gave the speech that he gave in Pennsylvania at Valley Forge, you think he's the problem? Y'all gonna have some issues come January of 2025. You can't even begin to imagine.
I agree with you 100% on that. And, the speech that President Biden gave on Friday, and then today I was playing some clips of his speech in South Carolina, which I think actually was delivered even more powerfully and even more committed. There was something about being in that church setting that I think brought something out in President Biden that was even better. And I think it's important he takes the fight right to Trump. And I know people on the right, Fox News, upset. They're going full Hitler on Trump. You mean the guy quoting Hitler? You mean that's the guy? Whoa, how bad are we? Saying the guy quoting Hitler who wants to be a dictator is going full Hitler.
Guy,
yeah, that guy. This is the surrealness of what we're living through here. Look, is there, the MAGA people, you've dealt with them. You may have been friends with them at one point, and then they became MAGA. They were normal Republicans.
Yeah.
If Trump is convicted, any change at all, do you think? If he says he's convicted in the January 6th case,
it hardens.
It
hardens. It hardens, Dean. It becomes like an encased substance that you can't chisel through. I don't even know if you'll find the diamonds that will be able to cut through it. They want to harden it. It's like anything. If you want it bad enough, it's going to be very hard to take it away from you, to pry it from you. And I think a lot of the MAGA believers feel like that. They actually think Donald Trump made their lives better. But when you objectively go back and go through it and you go, well, what did he do? What did he do? He cut taxes. Yeah, baby, but not for you. Your taxes didn't go up because you weren't making millions of dollars a year. You were a truck driver and you didn't see that tax cut. Oh, well, he made our border secure. No, baby, he didn't finish the wall. In fact, it never really started. And what work they did do, they did it on the pieces of the wall that were already there. Okay, so what else? Tell me what else. So you go, oh, well, he stood up to China. Okay, so how did that help you again? He put tariffs in place. And tariffs are what? Taxes. And those goods that you bought from China, how much did they cost? Because you thought China absorbed that tax? Really? And now he's talking again that make me president so I can do an all-out global tax on everything and everyone? Who the hell do you think gonna pay that? How much do you think that doll costs going to cost you that you want to give your grandchild at Christmas? Really? You really want to spend $150 for a doll? Because that's what it's probably going to cost you. So the reality of it is breaking it down for people to understand exactly how this puzzle fits together and where they are in it is important. And I will say this about the Biden political team. They have been woeful at connecting those puzzle pieces together for voters for them to see where they actually fit in the puzzle versus where they aren't. And where they aren't with Trump is everywhere. Where they are with him is infrastructure. The interest rates are coming down. Gas prices are coming down. And here's the kicker, Dean, you know this. Even when gas prices were high, people didn't stop going on vacation. They may have screamed and yelled about it, but they still took that vacation. So look, this is all about context and storytelling. This is where we are at this point in the campaign. It's about the narrative. I think the president started that narrative beautifully at Valley Forge. He continued it today at Mother Emanuel. And I think that's what he needs to do. The vice president, the same thing. They've set the narrative. Now we just need to see the rest of the political forces around the president organize themselves around that narrative and tell that story.
So if you were RNC chair, what if you were DNC chair now, or the leader of our Democratic Party, the political party? Now Michael's laughing at this. How much, though, is Biden's message? Should it be, look, Trump is a real threat to our democracy? And he is. Like, we're not even exaggerating. The guy attempted a coup, right? And how much of it should be speaking to people in an inspirational way about, here's my second term agenda? Because I wrote for MSNBC during the holidays that even a week before the year was up, on their website, they didn't have a second term agenda yet up there. Like, it's coming. And how much do you need both of them? Not just like, this guy's really bad for negative partisanship, but the aspirational partisanship where, like, hey, if we vote for this guy, this is what he's going to fight for. This is what he's going to do for us.
They're hugely important. And I'll give you an example of how it works. I had the Fire Pelosi bus tour back in 2010. That was hard charging rhetoric, politics, that's the stuff that got the juices flowing. People go, yeah, we're going to go do. But then there was also a broader positive narrative about the role of government in your life, the power you have as citizens to take control of the decisions that you make. The irony is you now have Republicans stripping that control, that power away from women in particular, not just on abortion issues related to abortions, but to other aspects of how they're raising their families, what books their children will have access to, the kinds of communities that they're going to live in. So this idea that we're now in a space where your rights, your liberties are being directly threatened is an important story to tell. And when you start to tell that story, you then relate it back to that hard charging part. this is what we're doing. This is what we've done. Look what we accomplished in the face of opposition from within our own ranks, right? Not every Democrat was on board with what I did, but by my leadership and by my perseverance, but most fundamentally by my belief in what I thought was best for you and your family and your community, you now have shovel-ready projects underway where potholes that were languishing on your roads and tearing up the underside of your car are getting fixed, and where prices now are coming down and are equalizing. So you connect these stories, but then to your point, to your op-ed, which was important, here's what reelecting me will do for you.
Right, we need that.
Here's where we go next, because guess what you get to do then? You get to refute the story that members of my party want to put up under the banner of Trump and MAGA is, that, oh, these left-wingers are going to come in and groom your kids. They're going to come in, these progressives are going to come in and ruin the economy and da-da-da-da-da. Well, then, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. This is where we're going to go next from here. We've laid down new roads, right? That was infrastructure. We've brought down the cost of traveling those new roads to go see grandma and granddad and to go to the grocery store, right? But here's what we're going to do next. We've got the environment in front of us because you know what? Hey, weather's a thing. It's a real thing. And you don't believe me, you go talk to people who are shoveling 70 feet of snow, in Arizona. That's, so that you kind of make the storylines come together around your next term in a way that people say, you know what, I'm willing to take the risk on that than I am willing to take the risk on the guy who tells me he wants to be a dictator.
And I think it's so important. People get that you can't fulfill every promise because you're not a dictator. But then you want to believe in it. You want to aspire and go like, this person's going to fight for this, whatever it might be. If it's Medicare for all, if it's about any programs that we care. And the infrastructure bill program is so good. Republicans who voted against it take credit for it. They send out press releases like, look at this. And you're like, it doesn't even matter. You call them out and hypocrisy means nothing to them.
So
it doesn't matter.
What you do. You take your political shop, grabs the sound and the video clips. You make those commercials saying, they complained, they moaned, they whined, and then they voted against it. But you know what? They showed up when the shovel hit the dirt, didn't they? And you know why? Because we did that. That's what you and me and those members who stood with us did for you. It's okay that they want to show up and take some credit for it. We're all Americans, right? We all get the benefit when things are good, and we all come together when things are tough. But just to let you know, where they stood, they wasn't with you. It wasn't with what we were trying to do, but it's okay. So kind of solve, you don't have to come, but here's the other side of it real quick. That political arm needs, you talk about the DNC and others, that's where the battleground is. Those guys in that shop, they don't have the same constraints that the White House has to be policy oriented. They can be purely political. And they should be allowed to go out and beat the drum for this administration all upside the head of Republicans. And I say that as a Republican who's been engaged with Democrats for many a year and had some drums beaten up beside my head and have beaten a few up against theirs. That's the way the game should be played out. That political shop just needs to come around and reinforce that messaging ASAP. Because I can tell you what's coming next from my side, and it ain't going to be pretty, and it's not going to be easy to swallow, and you're going to have to try to get in front of it.
So last thing, Mr. Steele, we're chatting with our friend Michael Steele, the new show premiering this Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, called The Weekend, co-hosting with Alicia Menendez and Simone Sanders Townsend. Tell us about the show. Very exciting.
Well, I'm really excited about it because I've been at the network for 12 years now, and I've grown familiar with the audience, and the audience has grown familiar with me, so they know who I am. They know I'm still a Republican. They know I'm a conservative. They know I'll give as good as I get, and that's all good. This brings us all to these characters, these professionals to the table in a way in which Alicia and Simone and I can engage on some of the topics we talked about. We want to bring the news. It's not just a repeat of what happened this week. It's not you may have forgotten Tuesday, so let us remind you. It is about how we make it fresh, how we have new conversations around it, bring some ideas that you may not have heard, and really take it to the next level, sort of set the standard for the weekend, so that, people get up with their cup of coffee. They're trying to get kids ready for sports and get ready for the rest of their day, whether it's going to be shopping or whatever they're going to do. They start the weekend with us. I like to put it this way: they can go to mass. They get a little Michael, a little Alicia, and a little Simone, and that's all good, right? And the idea is to have fun and enjoy it, but also to learn, to see something maybe a little differently than you hadn't seen it before. Hear something fresh that you hadn't heard before. We'll bring our personalities and our experience, and I'm just lucky to be paired up with two very, very strong, impressive women who've had their own shows on the network for up to 3 years now. So they're not strangers either. The audience knows us, and the goal here, to be honest, is to sort of grow that, to sort of build off of the relationships that we have with the MSNBC audience across all the platforms that we've been on over the years, but then to grow it, to bring some new faces and voices to our table every Saturday and Sunday morning, starting at 8 a.m.
That's great. And I wish you the best with it. It's a great 4-hour block. Then you got my buddy Ali Velshi right after at 10 a.m. to noon on Eastern time over there. Well, again, Michael, congratulations. New show. It's called The Weekend, premiering this Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern time. Michael's one of the co-hosts. You're great. I look forward to watching it. You're always fun to talk to. So I so appreciate you coming on here. We'll be chatting in the future, my friend.
Absolutely, Dean. And you have a standing invitation. I'd love to get you on to bring your perspective, your audience to the conversation, because look, I value you a great deal. We've become friends over the years, and I appreciate that. And so it's just really good to know that, hey, I can get into a battle with Dean Obeidallah. That's going to be fun for me.
I'll be standing outside of the studio at 7:58 a.m. next week going, hey, I'm here to fight you, Steele. Let's do this. All right, Michael. Thanks, brother. Have a good night.